So as the title states, I finally got my header leak fixed. If you've been following the channel or the Mustang videos, the last video I posted was how I keep getting screwed around. I've been waiting all year for a replacement header because I have had a leak due to the BBK header being warped. So now that I've solved this, I'm finally going to be uploading the install video, because I've been waiting all year to do the install video because I wanted to see what the end result of this was, especially since in the install video I made mention of people leaving reviews about well, exhaust leaks with the BBK headers. So finally figured it out. Well, first of all, a couple weeks ago, in the last video about the header issue, I detailed how I was told by BBK end of July, beginning of August. It is now September something or other, 13th, 14th, something like that. And a few weeks ago, I got another email from them. Now, well, actually from American Muscle, but they're going off of BBK's release dates. Now saying my order's pushed back till November. So yeah, I already waited all year, and by then it'll practically be winter in Ohio, and I don't have a garage. So I feel stupid for waiting all year. I wish I'd just looked into this earlier, but I finally figured it out. Now, as I outlined in those videos detailing the header issues with the BBK header here, I had a gap right here, and it was a very visible gap, and not only visible, but I was able to get my fingernail between the flange here and the gasket. Now you may notice now there's two gaskets there. So that was my first angle of attack, was that maybe if I double gasketed it, it would seal it. So it did do that, because there's no longer a gap here. While I had it off, I checked on a few flat edges to confirm that it was indeed warped. Now initially, with having a gap here, I believe it was warped. The center was warped out and the edges were touching. However, when I checked it on the flat surfaces, it was indeed warped, but it was warped the opposite direction. So instead of the center not touching the floor or the table or whatever flat edge, it was the opposite. The center was touching, but the edges weren't. And it was only by about 1 millimeter. So that's not a too terrible of amount. I don't know if that would cause a sealing issue on the ends, but when I bolted up, the ends never had a gap anyways. It was always right here. So I believe it was warped in multiple directions in order to have a gap here. That, or the finish on the bottom side of this created a gap, like maybe the chrome was thinner there or something like that. But again, if you go check out those previous videos, you see what I'm talking about, and you can check them all out easily on the Mustang playlist instead of having to scroll through a bunch of videos. But so to fix that gap that I had here, I double gasketed it, which did seal that up. However, when I started it back up with the double gasket on there, I still had an exhaust leak. So long story short, I ended up finding out I had to wait till the car cooled down. I started suspecting this joint here, because on this side, and if you watch the install video, you'll see it, I reused the old hardware. That's not currently what's in here, but I reused the old hardware because instead of the nut coming off like it was supposed to, like it did on the other side, my nut was so seized on both sides here that it actually backed out the stud of the factory manifold, and it's got a little button on it, so it doesn't allow it to fall through this slip flange here. So I didn't know that would create an issue by reusing the factory hardware, because the instructions for the header install, it doesn't say you absolutely have to use their provided hardware or else you get leaks. But that ended up being the case. By reusing those factory studs, that button would stop against the flange on the header here, and it wasn't quite clamping up all the way. So I had to get down in here with a Dremel, and actually came from underneath of it, and I had to spin this around several times and it took a while because I couldn't quite get the angle I needed, but I had to cut those old studs off because that was the only way to get them out so that I could install the hardware that it came with. So that was previously an unknown factor to me. I never heard anyone else mention that. But yeah, so because I reused the original studs, because I knew I was going to have to fight with trying to cut them out otherwise, that gave me a leak there. So
not only did I have a leak up here from a gap there that I fixed by double gasketing it, but then I had a leak here with the downpipe connection because apparently the factory hardware does not clamp it up tight enough.
So yeah, all that's going in the install video, because in the install video I mentioned that I'd read some of the reviews of people having issues with leaks, and that's why I've been waiting, because I wanted to come to an end conclusion about this, because that was part of the video too, as an experiment to see if it was actually BBK's fault, like what people were saying, or if it was just that they weren't experienced installers and that's why they had an issue. But so yeah, I found those two issues. I did have the one header was warped that I had to remedy with the double gasket, but then also that flange, it says nowhere in the instructions that you absolutely have to use the hardware they provide. It makes sense now that I figured it out, but so that was the issue. So now I'll have the install video coming up soon. Also, I've installed AMR ported upper and lower intake manifold. So now I got this leak fixed, I'm going to finally be able to go back out to the track and see what it runs now with the headers and the ported intakes. Last outing, which of course I posted a video of, ran a 13.5, so I'm hoping to drop a tenth or two with the headers and the intakes. Then I'm going to do some logs on my tuner and send them to MPT and have them revise the tune and see if we get any quicker from that. And I still got to put all new brakes on around all four corners and shocks and struts as well, so that'll be coming up too. And then obviously I'm going to do some little pool videos and probably a sound clip too, because it does sound a little different with those headers on there now. I really like it. It seemed to deeper tone and smooth it out a little bit. So all that and more coming up. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.